want to talk to you about a topic that's not really discussed that often, which is why people do insider trading. Now, I'm not going to say that it's justified at all, but I want to kind of discuss why some people do this criminal activity. And I actually have I have a bunch of friends that have gone to prison over my 25-year career in finance, and I visited them in jail as well numerous times, and it's really sad when it happens to somebody and nobody will want to talk to them. Everyone runs away. And before I discuss insider trading in more detail, one of my prouder moments in life was when a good buddy of mine, he got arrested and for insider trading in the whole Raj Ratnam scandal. And he called me and asked for help. And I love to run to people that need help. And I am closer to people when something bad happens to them, rather than vice versa. And he asked me to write a letter to the judge to plead that that he not go to jail, and I did it. And I'm very proud of that moment. And you know, what happened was when you write a letter to a judge, it becomes public property. And what occurred was that letter was published, and it was in Bloomberg. And that's a big financial news network, and my name was mentioned. And you can do a search on Chris Haroon, my name, and Bloomberg, and you'll see it. And I was very proud of standing up to my friend to help him out. So let me talk to you about, first of all, what is insider trading. So insider trading is when you know something about a company that's on a stock market that the general public does not know, and you transact on it, or you help other people transact on it, it's against law and you can go to jail for that. And so I'll give you an example. Let's say that you overheard, you were lining up at Starbucks in Cupertino, right by Apple's headquarters, and you overheard Apple engineers talking about the next release of the iPhone, and you knew the stock was going to go up a lot because of that, and you transacted. That's illegal. It's against the law. And one of the reasons it's against the law is that the government wants to make it so that it's a noble thing, actually, for the government to do this. They want to make it so that everybody has the same access to information at the same time. And that's why a lot of earnings calls, when companies report earnings every 3 months, that's why they're webcasts on the internet, so everybody has access to that same information at the same time. So you got to be careful. You got to be careful. And if you work in a company and you heard something proprietary, if you're not sure what to do, talk to your compliance officer and tell them. And what they'll do is, if you work on Wall Street, whatever, or in finance anywhere in the world, they'll put that company on what's called the restricted list, and you can't transact in it, and neither can the people that you work with. Every company's a little bit different, but just be careful. Remember that one rule that if excuse me, if you think that the whole world does not have access to the information, but you do, then that's probably something that you should never transact on. Okay, so let me talk about why people do it. And I'm certainly not saying that it's a good thing. It's obviously it's against the law and all that, but nobody talks about why they do it. And I remember when I was younger, my dad, he gave me this book called The Millionaire Next Door. And Millionaire Next Door was a book about people that don't seem like they have money, but they have a lot of money because they live below their means. Very important to live below your means. So what happens is people go to Wall Street and they get one big bonus and they think, oh wow, I'm gonna get this big bonus every year. And you know, they have this nice apartment in New York City, they buy it, they send their kids to private schools, which costs 30 grand for preschool, which is ridiculous. And they want to maintain that standard of living. And they get surprised because they don't get the same bonus amount every year. And so they cut corners, and greed takes over. And they use information in incorrect ways. Like I mentioned, they break the law. so they can maintain that standard of living. That's why they do it, I think. And greed is a big part of it. Obviously, I'm not saying you should do it. You certainly should not. But I'm just trying to explain why people do it. And I remember when I worked at, and get you a nice little view of the Bay Bridge in the background here. When I worked at Goldman Sachs, I remember my first day there, we were all put into the training program. And they said, welcome to Goldman Sachs. Don't do anything that can get you on the cover of the Wall Street Journal or the firm. And you might have an opportunity to do more harm than good to this company. And then they fingerprinted us and said, welcome to Goldman Sachs again. All kidding aside, it was the right thing to do. And the crazy thing is that one of my buddies that went to jail was in that start class with me, and he broke the law with insider trading, not when he was at Goldman, but years later when he was at another company. And it was such a small thing. I remember asking him about it, and he said, Chris, I didn't even realize I did it. I was just kind of, I'm not going to say who it is, but he said, I was on the phone and I was eating lunch, and he's a trader, and he had a bunch of screens in front of him, and he heard something, and he hung up the phone, and then maybe he mentioned somebody else. I can't remember exactly. You know, don't quote me on that. But that's what happened. You just got to be careful. And the safest way is just, if you're not sure, talk to compliance, and always assume that, I hate saying this, but always assume that every email and every phone call is recorded forever. And I'm sure that over the years when I worked for myself in the hedge fund industry, that my calls were being listened to by the FBI and whatnot. So you gotta be careful. You gotta be careful. So the bottom line is, when it comes to insider trading, if you think you heard something you shouldn't have heard, you need to talk to your boss and your compliance officer, and it will actually make you look really good, and it could save your career and the firm as well. And it's never ever worth it. Never worth it. Just be long-term greedy. If this was helpful, and only if this was helpful, please click the like button, and I will see you mañana. Thank you. There's not many industries where you can go to jail for doing things you didn't know were wrong, and financial services is unfortunately one of them. So I want you to know the rules, understand what's right and what's wrong, okay? Why do people break the law? I think there's a lot of greed involved, and also I think some people that go to Wall Street or work in finance, they get used to making so much money and they have a very high standard of living, and they can't go back. And so sometimes they might break the rules to try to make sure that they can maintain that standard of living. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out why they do this. That might be one explanation. So heck, I don't know. Live below your means always. Even Martha Stewart broke the rules and traded somehow on inside information, and she spent time in jail. So just be careful. Get to know your compliance officer. Compliance departments help protect you and your family and your reputation. They've got a noble function, and I respect it tremendously. If you think you heard something about a company that you shouldn't have heard, you need to tell your compliance officer right away so you can protect your family. That stock will then be put on the restricted list. Business schools don't spend enough time on ethics. How many days does a quarter have? Well, we all know that a quarter is 3 months, and a quarter has about 90 days, give or take 1 or 2 days. There are some people that have 95 or 96 or 97 day quarters. What does that mean? Well, what they do is a lot of times people will end the quarter and they'll miss their quotas, and they'll pull some business from next quarter into this quarter. That's fraud. And there are CEOs in jail because of this. The CEO of Computer Associates in Long Island, he's in jail. I think it was a 10-year sentence he got for doing this. So just be really careful. And there's so many rules you might not know. And just err on the side of caution, please. Get to know your compliance officer. Just assume all calls and emails are recorded in the finance industry. And I know you'll never break the rules, but just know that. You need to also disclose all risks whenever you're talking about an investment. Okay? When you're talking about a potential investment to clients, to whoever, you have to disclose all risks. So be 100% transparent, okay? Always be transparent. Ask yourself, would I feel comfortable having my parents buy this product as well? And a bribe is more subtle than you think. There's even bizarre rules like you can't spend more than $100 on a client for dinner, right? And so the sell side has to be careful of these things when they take you, the buy side, out to dinner. But you could break the law as well, or the rules, if you accept, a gift that's over $100. So the bottom line is, ask your compliance officer for guidance. Uh-oh, looks like there's a compliance issue. How's the quarter going? You can't ask that question, Sally. You can't ask that question, okay? Gordon Gekko went down for doing stuff like that, all right? So you gotta be careful. That's a big no-no. You can't ask how business is progressing ever, because companies cannot give you forward-looking stuff or numbers, okay? Horatio's asking, who are you buying next? You can't do that. You can't ask who you're buying next. They won't tell you unless it's a big public forum, and they'll never give that away to you. So you got to be really careful. Now, with investment banks, they've got something called a Chinese wall, right? And Isabel, who's the investment banker analyst, she says here, I'll tell you later who they're going to buy, to Sally, the sell side analyst who works at the firm. And of course, that's a big no-no. They're not allowed to do that. And that's why they call it a Chinese wall, because they're not supposed to be communicating at all. Okay, so these are some compliance issues you've got to be careful of. And oh boy, it looks like those three people are they might be going to trial for this. So let's see what happens here. Okay, yep, they're going to trial. Let's see what's going to happen. Always be careful. They should have talked to their compliance director first, and they should have known better too, because they went through training. Yep, it's going to trial. Here we go. It's going to trial. And it can take sometimes 1.5 to 2 years of you waiting to go to trial. And so those three people that are going through trial right now, they had to wait for 1.5 to 2 years before trial started. And it was a miserable 2 years for them, because they don't know if they're going to jail. And so, the trial can take a long, long time. The government's got a pretty good read on who's going down. Uh-oh. Victor, the venture capitalist analyst, looks like he wrote something in an email that might have gotten tracked. So he just got pulled in this. He's testifying now, it looks like. Oh no, he's going down as well. Shoot. He should have been careful as well. You can never be too careful of these things. And these trials drag on for ages, and so many people are subpoenaed. I know I'm kind of overdoing this, but I really want to put the fear in you to just be really careful and not try to chase money and do the wrong things, because that happens all the time. Looks like Mo, the mutual fund analyst, is on the witness stand here, and he might have transacted on a piece of information that you just saw there. Who's up next? Barbara, the big company analyst, was tied into this too. Looks like she might have transacted through her broker in this piece of insider information. I don't know what company they've transacted on, but it looks like it's pretty messy. A lot of people are getting involved. Oh my God, there's a wiretap now. And Peggy, the private wealth analyst, was tied into this directly. This is tragic. This is tragic. She's on the witness stand as well. And so now she's going through the trial. And this is what happened with Galleon. I'm not trying to make light of a serious issue, but you can Google Galleon, that's Galleon, and see what happened there. A lot of people got tied into this. And a lot of people went down for a long time, or they're kicked out of the industry forever. And so, unfortunately, these people are going to be put away for a little while. So you really need to understand the compliance rules. I'm saying all this over and over again because I do care, and I want you to talk to and get to know your compliance officer at whatever financial services firm you work at. Ignorance of the law is no excuse, especially in the securities industry.